Hello, and thank you for joining us. We'll begin the webinar in a few minutes as we wait for everyone to get logged on. You are automatically muted and your video is not visible. Please take the next few moments to adjust your audio and screen size to your liking. If you are having any challenges, please send them through the Q&A button. Handouts for today's presentation will be distributed following the presentation. Hello, and thank you for joining us. We'll begin the webinar in a couple of minutes as we wait for everyone else to get logged on. You are automatically muted and your video is not visible. Please take the next few moments to adjust your audio and screen size to your liking. If you are having any challenges, please send them through the Q&A button. Handouts for today's webinar will be distributed following the presentation.
Good morning, good noon, and good afternoon, NAGC. Welcome to our March edition of Webinar Wednesday. I am Bethany Hornbeck, Professional Development Director with NAGC, and I will be your host for today's webinar. I do have to say I'm feeling a little misty today because I'm coming to the end of my 4th year as NAGC's Professional Development Director. This means I'm near the end of my allowable term in that role, and that means also near the end of my time as your webinar host. I hope you all have enjoyed our committee's Webinar Wednesday series over the last few years and that you will continue to join us as we transition to a new leader in this role in July. That month, I will join all of you on your side of the Zoom screen. I think it'll be fun to see Webinar Wednesdays from that new perspective. In the meantime, however, I am still with you, and I'm excited to have former Competitions Director and frequent Webinar Wednesday presenter, S.J. Brown, with us today. S.J. is going to be talking about one of her greatest areas of expertise, social media, and how we can cut through the noise with a simple whisper. S.J. comes to us from the great state of Florida, where she serves as Chief of Public Affairs for the Air Force's Homestead Air Reserve Base. S.J., welcome back to Webinar Wednesday. We are so pleased to have you here again.
Thanks, Bethany. I'm really glad to be back again.
Thanks. We always like when you join us. Let's address our usual housekeeping items, and then we'll turn the floor over to you, our most excellent speaker. First off, question and answer. So SJ is going to go through her presentation in its entirety, and then she'll turn to you all for discussion. As your questions come up, you can send them to us through the Q&A box on your screen. When SJ comes to the end of her slides, we'll go through those as they come in, and I think we're going to have a very rich discussion today. Next, what's coming up at NAGC? Well, the Communications School, of course. We are excited to return to our nation's capital this year after a couple of years away, and we are set to bring everyone together June 25th through 27th just outside the city. Isn't that a beautiful graphic for the school this year? I just have to say, as soon as I saw that, it just thrilled me. I just think it's beautiful. It's just a great representation of what we'll be doing at the school this year. Our program committee has finalized the agenda for our advanced training workshops, which are on June 25th, and registration for those half-day sessions is open. You can see the descriptions of the sessions and speakers under the Communications School tab at nagc.com, as well as costs and schedules for that advanced day of training. For the actual school, which is June 26th and 27th, early bird registration prices are available through May 15th, so you have time to reserve your seat at that level. The program committee is finalizing the agenda now, so keep an eye out for that coming soon, but registration's open, so you can go ahead and get your seat if you'd like to do it now. In anticipation of the school, we have 2 more outstanding webinars before we take a break in June. Next month, on April 17th, we will be joined by the team who won our 2018 Best in Show Award for the Blue Pencil and Gold Screen competition. So every year, hundreds of high school students in Southern California come together to compete in a STEM competition called the Solar Cup. This is held by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and it is one of its most successful outreach programs. Through it, the district gets its message out about water conservation to both the participants, but also to kids that they know, because they capitalize on the teenagers' natural inclination to share with their friends over social media. So presenters from the district are going to talk with us about how we can support our communities, get our young people involved, create scenarios that will allow us to spread our messages to this hardest to reach age group. Then in May, we will hear from our 2018 Communicator of the Year, Lieutenant Donnie Brzuska, who is with the U.S. Coast Guard. He has honed in on a fantastic topic, taking risks in government communications. Lieutenant Brzuska earned Communicator of the Year based on his coordination of outreach initiatives that reached more than 1 billion people worldwide in 2017 and increased public awareness of transnational organized crime. They use both traditional and non-traditional approaches to that. And they also created a series of media events at the national level that included media embeds to remote Arctic locations and aboard polar icebreakers in both the Arctic and the Antarctic. So for us, he's going to talk about pluses and minuses of taking innovative approaches to communicating in government and how to manage risks in doing so, and the outcomes we can achieve by taking on new models for communicating. So we've got 3 outstanding presentations going into the school, and I'm excited, as always, about all of them. We are in the process of setting up registrations. They're not quite ready, but they will be next week. And of course, you'll see email announcements in your inboxes, so keep your eyes open for those. And I hope to see everyone again in April and May. And finally, I want to let all of you know that we are soon going to be having a call for new board members. We're going to be holding elections here ahead of the school. And we have three positions coming open. One of them, of course, being Professional Development Director, and the other one's being Treasurer and Education Director. We would love to have all of you apply. I know that a lot of you that are on the call right now are here on Wednesdays on the regular, and so your input, because you're so engaged, would be especially valuable to the association. And I just can't say enough about how much I've enjoyed, but also learned serving on the board. As you guys know, I'm hot on folks getting involved in NAGC for those reasons. So I say, if you're up for it, go for it. You could also get in touch with us about joining a committee or just pitching in on a project per Chris O'Neill's email from a few weeks ago. You know, we always have something to do, and I tell you, you will not regret it. Trust me, it is everything you think it will be and more. So go ahead and join in with NAGC and have a good time with all of those cool folks here in the board of directors. Let's see, more housekeeping? Nope, I'm good. Let's turn the floor over to SJ now and hear what she has to share about standing out on social media. SJ, thank you again for presenting today. I'm going to pass the torch to you, and you can begin whenever you are ready.
It does help if you unmute, right? Hoping everyone can see me now. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is something near and dear to my heart because for the very longest time, I've had a lot of screaming and shouting in social media. And for the last, I would say, probably 8 years, well, we'll get into some dates and some numbers, I have been researching how people have been talking and communicating on social media. So forgive me, I'm getting over a cold, so I might sound a little sniffly, but I hope you understand me. Another reason why this topic is so near and dear to me is because small businesses, I have a lot of friends who are in small biz, and they're constantly trying to grow their sites, and they're talking about social media is free and how us as government communicators, we don't have big budgets, obviously, not all of us, some of us do, but not all of us, and we're constantly trying to figure better ways to spend our advertising or marketing dollars. So that's why I started really paying attention to how people are communicating on social media. So what we're going to be covering today, the historic shouting, why we shout, are you guilty? I know I have been, but are you? Ignorance is bliss, or at least some of our audience thinks so. And I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks on how to metaphorically whisper. Not necessarily physically whisper, but obviously these are all of my theories, opinions, and analyses. So there's much, much more out there, and my theory is being tested every day and analyzed. So it's not 100% concrete. So just to give you a heads up, I like history. A lot of data and history are in this presentation. So, and these will be made, these slides will be made available to you. So if you don't catch everything I said in my notes, they'll be available. And I know that they're recording this, so I sound really silly at some points. But radio, when did we first hear mass advertising? Here. Radio advertisements, 1922. When did we first hear and see on the internet advertisements, or marketing, if you will? 1994. So, social media. When did social media start? It was a program called 6 Degrees for anyone that's interested in the history of social media, named after that old little game that we used to play, the 6 Degrees of Separation or 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon theory. Started back in '97. This was a program that that helped people socially connect with their friends, chatting with their friends and talking to their friends. You can find out more information on the actual program 6 Degrees on, I put a little courtesy of down at the bottom just in case you wanted to, check my facts. You never know. This usage actually peaked at about 3.5 million users before it went, it kind of slowly died out back in about 2001, the end of 2001. But never fear, there's always something bigger and better waiting in the wings, right? But just a little bit about 6 Degrees. It is considered to be the first social, and that's the key word here, media site, because it really did allow individuals to make profiles, add others to their personal network, and communicate back and forth. So truly communicate back and forth, not just out. Now then, obviously, we've got Friendster that popped up, and here's a little screen snapshot of one of the Friendster pages. And again, this is from historycooperative.org as well, if you want to read more on the background of Friendster. But it emerged to compete with 6 Degrees. And because they knew that 6 Degrees was dying out in 2001, they started up playing around with it in 2001, launched in 2002, and again, also allowed users to make contacts and personally network. Now, some interesting things down here, if you look at it, there's always, again, something bigger, better waiting in the wings, right? These are all tools to communicate. LinkedIn, founded in 2002, MySpace a year later, Facebook a year later, Twitter 2 years later, a little bit of a gap between Twitter and Instagram, but then Snapchat right on the heels of Instagram. So you can see you've got all these communication tools. It's fantastic. So just something interesting tidbit fact that I found was that just a few months after its launch, Friendster had over 3 million users. So you look at 1997 to 2001, when it took 6 Degrees program to accumulate 3.5 million users, Friendster, right off of 6 Degrees' heels, already has 3 million users in a few months. And by the time it actually started dying down and LinkedIn, MySpace, Facebook started taking over, it was 100 million users. So that was its final approximate growth. So Friendster died out in 2011, got rebranded as a gaming brand or site, and in the end, Friendster as a gaming site failed, but you've got all these other tools that took over. So what does that mean to us? Well, it kind of gives you a background on, we've got all these tools, and I'm looking at YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, because this is what research we have available to us from the Pew Research Center from 2018. And it kind of gives us an idea of why we shout. Could be just that it's the sheer numbers of those on social media, then they're overwhelming. We feel we need to, with all these numbers out there, all these people, surely this is a captive audience just waiting to hear our excellent good news about our government good doings and office and our government employees. Obviously, all these people want to know all about us, right? Well, yes, maybe, hopefully. So you look at these numbers and you say, oh my goodness, look at all these people. Especially, you look at the note down at the bottom, it says respondents who did not give answers are not shown. There's more people out there than this. 51% of people on Facebook check Facebook several times a day, at least once a day. Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. 74% of Facebook users are on daily. I can reach them. This is cheap. This is most of the time free. I want a piece of this pie, you're saying to yourself as a government communicator, right? Well, yes. Again, why we shout. I left this small for a reason. This comes from BrandWatch, which is a social media statistics and facts for all of the social media sites. And I'm just going to give you a minute or two to read over this. I'll highlight a few of these. If you're on audio, just know that this slide that I'm referring to has so much data in it that it would probably take you a good 3 or 4 minutes to read it. So I'll pick up the highlights. The big foot stomper in this room that I'm going to base the rest of my slides on is that the average daily time a person spends on social media, according to research, is 116 minutes a day. That's 2 hours almost, right? 60 minutes per hour, 2 hours, that's 120 minutes. Just shy of 2 hours, right? There are 3.97 billion active social media, let's keep that in mind, active social media users, not just users, social media accounts and users, but active. There are 5.54 social media accounts. This is, from my understanding, worldwide. So $40 billion was spent on social network advertising in 2016. 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. More than 95 million photos are uploaded to Instagram each day, and 2 million snaps are sent each minute on Snapchat. So those numbers sometimes are just incomprehensible. 91% of retail brands use 2 or more social media channels. It would be safe to say that all of us on this conference call or webinar are using 2 or more social media channels. I would make an assumption. 116 minutes a day, the average user is on social media. So let's take that and run with it. 116 minutes. Your audience average, I know people that are on it a lot more, I know people that are on it a lot less, are on social media. Who are you competing with as a government communicator? Who are you competing with for those 116 minutes to reach your audience? I thought to myself when I saw that number, 116 minutes a day? Surely my audience, if I've targeted my audience wants to hear from me. I know they want to spare 6 minutes. So I'm just going to shout at them. But the shouting gets longer and louder when I realize that I am competing with, on social media, I'm competing with celebrities, the Kardashians, the whoever is hot in the news today. I'm competing with comrades. I left these all as C's just to make a point. And besides, it made my slide sound good. Comrades, their friends. You're competing with their friends for their social media time. You're competing with commercials, paid advertisements from big corporations that have the advertising and marketing budget to put ads right in front of your audience's face that will sway them away from your message and go click on that. Oh yes, I do want to buy this from Amazon. Oh yes, I was looking for dog biscuits from Petco. Commercials, current events, those feeds that pop up right in the middle of a message you're trying to send out are important to your audience as well. Curiosity. Our screens in social media have so many different pockets to it, as I call it, that the curiosity when this thing over in the right hand flashes and then the bottom hand is your message and it's not flashing, well, what's going to get your audience's attention? And then, of course, there's crooks, switch bait, spams, all these things that are malware trying to infiltrate your message and cheat people out of money, time, bandwidth sometimes. So did I also mention that you are also competing with the people themselves? Your audience is not just sucking in information about everything around them. They are also sharing information about themselves. They are posting their own snaps. They're putting out their own Facebook statuses. They're marketing themselves personally as well. So you're competing with them as well. So that 116 minutes is now competing, is now basically nothing. So now what do? I have to shout. I have to shout so that you hear me over celebrities. I have to post 75 times a day. I have to make my graphics funnier. I have to make my GIFs flashy. I have to make a video for every single message that I put out. And that's what we're being told sometimes by these marketing gurus that are telling us, oh, well, to be successful in social media, you must post on Facebook twice a day. You must send out 6 Instagram. I'm making this up, but you get the gist. We're being told that we have to do this and this and this and this and this to be competitive. Well, if everybody is doing 6 Facebook posts a day and 2 videos on YouTube a week, and some are doing more, but if everyone is doing that, then where's the attention going? Obviously, this is not a webinar on the strategy of putting out specific, precise messages to your target audiences. Only you can do that. All I'm saying is this is more of a webinar of being aware that when you're trying to compete, what you're competing against on social media to be heard, and what the likelihood of your competition is going to get you. I've spent years spinning my wheels trying to compete with celebrities, friends, commercials, current events, curiosities, crooks, and the people themselves to get just the tiniest sliver of that 116 minutes of a person's day. And I've come to the realization that I can't reach everyone all at the same time, but as long as I have a great strategic plan, which that's a completely different webinar, And I know what I'm up against. I know exactly what I'm up against because I've got statistics, I've got data, which I've showed you a little bit. There's tons more out there. And I know what I'm facing, then I can make a better strategic plan. So hopefully all of this that I'm going to give you today will help you either tweak your strategic plan that you already have in place or help improve one. Or you can add to it and make it phenomenal and then enter it in the NAGC competition for 2019 for an award. So, do you shout? I do. I'm guilty. I have shouted. I have shouted into a social media void. I'm not proud of it, but it happens to all of us. I'm being told by this social media marketing guru that I have to post this many times a day. So I do. I have a strategic message and I've crafted this beautiful message and I've got one or two for every day of the month and I've made my little calendar. Yay! I'm not shouting. So I came up with this little formula that, and I'll read them just in case anyone is just listening and can't see the slides. Little quiz. So, are you a shouter? Do you put the same message on all social mediums? In other words, do you put a post on Facebook and just let it pop over to Instagram, Twitter, and don't change your message for your audience? There's another slide. There's another webinar for that altogether about generational trending. The only thing I'll say about that is if you're doing that, you probably might want to stop because that's you're probably not going to get the biggest bang for your buck if you're using the same message for all mediums. Going back to that Pew research, different age groups are on different mediums as a whole, as an average, not a whole. So next, do you have more than 5 social media outlets, and are you trying to keep up with the Joneses on each one of those social media outlets? Do you feel you must post something on each one daily? Something. Doesn't matter what, something. Do you use more words than visuals? Are you more a text post with just words than a GIF or a video or just a photo? Here's one. Do you often link your customers to your website to read more about you or to sell your brand? Do you brag about things you've done? And there's a little difference in bragging and highlighting. I'll go into that a little bit in a little while. Do you answer your customers' messages or questions publicly with selling strategies or key messages? And what I mean by that is when someone asks you, do you, just for example, I used to work in a water purification for the county as their communications director. Do you have an online bill payment? And at the time we didn't. And so instead of just saying, unfortunately we don't, you may pay your bill this way or this way, we decided to put a command message in there that said, oh, we offer, instead of saying, no, I'm sorry, we don't, because obviously the person was asking, do we, because they wanted to use it, we said, oh, we have this way and this way and this way, and aren't we great for giving you 3 different ways to pay your bill? Yeah, we answered their question in a roundabout way, but we puffed ourselves up by doing it. So don't answer your customers' questions or messages publicly and toss in command messages. At least this is from my perspective, if it works for you, do it. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked for me. They get annoyed. They read the first 2 sentences that says, yes, we do, or no, we don't, and they move on. You've just wasted a half hour of your time crafting a command message that nobody wants to read, and they're going to get annoyed at you. This is my experience. Again, if this works for you, you just keep doing it, okay? Do you try to make jokes or age-appropriate posts? For example, if you're 40-something like me, are you trying to, reach out to a 14-year-old demographics by trying to talk like a 14-year-old? They kind of see through that. At least my son tells me that. So making jokes, make them sparingly, because they sometimes backfire on you. I've had some of these. And also, do you try to market to those outside your target audience? I've already talked about target audiences in a previous webinar. General public is not a target audience. A target audience is 14 to 18-year-olds in the Houston, Texas area who are going to private school. That's a target audience. So anyway, if you're guilty of I don't want to say guilty, I shouldn't say that. If you have done 2 or 3 or more of these, you might be a shouter. So people are starting to ignore. They're starting to think that, hey, you know what, being ignorant of what's going on social media is going to save my sanity. So they're kind of taking the ignorance as bliss. This was really kind of scary to me. How many people in the United States on social media say that it would not be hard to give up social media, and who are trying hard to social media? Said that's a pretty high number. Obviously, it's in age, broken down in age. So 18 to 24 are like half and half. The 25 to 29, 60%. That was kind of interesting number. Then of course 50 and older, they weren't in, some of them weren't in it as long as some of these new kids that are all digital. So maybe it's not as hard. I can't answer for them. I'm just reading you the Pew Research Center. But I will tell you that many parents, according to a couple of articles that we've been reading lately, are limiting their children's use to 30 minutes a day. And that's not just little children, that's up to preteens and teens. They're using blocking features on phones. So parents are starting to take away social media. So again, you've got social media addiction that's italicized for a reason, is actually being looked at by medical and health professionals as a serious issue. And thus we have things like scroll-free September, dry January, Stoptober as hashtags because people are shutting down social media sites. I mean, I have friends that quit Facebook or Snapchat. And even my millennial son and his friends have either stopped using social media or just slimmed down to one media channel, Instagram or Snapchat, for example. So your public is now getting smaller, and they're getting more annoyed because of the shouting and the constant stream of information. What do we do? I mean, what are we going to do? I have a really great video for those who are my age or older. You'll remember this. For those that are not my age, it's a funny video about subject matter experts. So go ahead and watch this.
You'll never regret the purchase of a good stock.
You don't say.
Yeah, my broker says it's a real good buy. What does your broker say?
Well, my broker's E.F. Hutton. And Hutton says...
When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
Yes, E.F. Hutton. Like I said, Bethany earlier today when we were running through the slides, she said that, she giggled and she said that made my day. I remember those commercials. I was younger when I was watching those commercials, as was Bethany, but when E.F. Hutton talks, E.F. Hutton is an investment firm with over 100 years of, I think it's 115 years now, of experience. They are a subject matter expert. 115 years, they are pretty knowledgeable about their organization. And when an E.F. Hutton representative talks, people listen. So what is that message for us? With all of this shouting and talking and social media users, everyone on at the same time, how can we fix this shouting problem? Well, I'm just going to go over a few things that have worked for me in my current position and in a few of the other positions that I've been in. And one is, first, talk. Don't shout. Don't, as a colleague of mine said, spray and pray. In the military world, that means just spray bullets and hope that you hit something. But in a more kinder, gentler world, it's just throwing a bunch of information out there just because the social media marketing gurus say that you should, and you should post things all the time. Instead of spraying a lot of information out there willy-nilly, talk to the followers you currently have and find out their needs, not yours. We know you have needs in your organization. We know you need to get your message out. But if you get your message out, nobody's listening. Did you get your message out? It's that tree in the forest thing. But be the best subject matter expert you can possibly be for your organization. You are the voice of your organization. Are people going to come to you and listen to you when you speak? Or are you going to shout at them like someone selling stolen Rolex watches on the street? Hey, come here, and try to entice them in when everybody else is trying to entice them in. Be trustable and respect your followers' time. That's a big thing. Remember, you've got big ideas and infomercials and all these great, big, lofty goals, and you're throwing them out there at your audiences, and we're the greatest, and we do this, and we've done that, and that's all your audience hears. And I do need to give you a little story about my dentist. So he thinks that he is the absolute great, or one of the dentists that I went to when I first got here to Florida, thinks that he is the absolute greatest dentist in the world. And everybody, he's the greatest dentist. He's the greatest dentist. And he's on social media. He's on Yelp. He's the greatest social media, greatest dentist. Great social media presence, apparently. I get into his office, and he doesn't deliver. He's not trustable. He's disrespected my time by me researching him and all this social media about him. Oh, he's so great, he's so great, he's so great. I get in there and I have a toothache. And I said, I have a toothache. Oh, well, he does an exam, and he not only offers me to fix the tooth, which, my oh, and give me a deep cleaning. Oh, and give me a whitening. Oh, and give me braces or Visalign. Oh, and give me Botox. Oh, and he also sells this extra special toothpaste. Oh, and he's not, where is he a SME? If you're constantly upselling all of your extra stuff or telling people about all your extra uh, products or programs or projects. I know you're not selling anything, but your projects and programs, what are you a SME of? Find what you're a SME of in your organization and be that mouthpiece, be that SME. That's why people will follow you. 3, make it social. Give your followers a reason to speak well of you. Hey, if you can do giveaways for, bringing friends or referring friends to your site, do a giveaway. I mean, some people could do that, some people can't. Having a referral program or a fun contest to get people to spread the word about you, to get more followers so that you can talk to them, not shout, talk, is great. We did that with pets. We did a dog of the week, and then we chose the Homestead is where we're based, Homestead Hound, and we were able to give a small bone and a gift card to Petco, and it got people to interact with us and to look at us. All of our military people, well, not all of them, but most of our military people, they have pets. They wanted to share their pet stories, which got our audience interested in our military people because they shared a common bond. Find those things. Make it social, but make it, but again, know your people, so because you're the SME. And also make sure everyone in the organization is on board. The last thing you want is, I'll give you something that True Social Metrics, which is a company that measures social metrics, says that social media users who receive excellent customer service from brands spend 21% more than non-social customers. So when your customer service folks are on board with your messaging and your talking and your communication, then and your physical customer service or your call centers or your bill pay centers or whatever you have are on board and they're giving great customer service, that makes your job twice as easy. And know your weaknesses. I encourage everybody to do a SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses. I just forgot what the O was. And threats, obstacles and threats. And find out what your SWOT, your weaknesses are for your organization. Does your office have money to do any marketing? Well, that's probably why you're on social media a lot more. Do you have the time? Do you have the staffing? Do you have the influence? If you've only got 50 followers on Facebook, you probably don't have a lot of influence on Facebook, but if you've got 10,000 on Instagram, you might want to be focusing on Instagram a little bit more. Know where your strengths and weaknesses are. Who's your competition? I did tell you a few of your competition earlier in the webinar, but you've got more competition out there. If you are an electric company, you're not most of the time, you're not the only electric company out there. You're not the only park in the park and recreation area, for example. And this is one that gets me sometimes, is your headquarters demands. Unfortunately, we all must have some type of standards that we set for ourselves and our headquarters set for us. And sometimes those, we sometimes just have to check a box and do the best we can with those. But know what your headquarters or your higher headquarters demands are. So be the SME. I put this up there because I really admire people who are celebrities or are big name brands who also either give back to the community or they don't use social media at all. Now, these are SMEs, regardless of whether or not you're a you love them or hate them, beer, cigarettes, Rihanna, and Carly Kloss, supermodel, they are SMEs in something. So just a little bit of highlight on these. These guys don't use social media for, they're not, well, Marlboro and the beer brand, Lager Beer Hill, do not use social media. They don't have to. Same with Apple. You're not going to see Apple using social media. In fact, it's kind of funny. I wanted to put it up here. At Apple is actually a Twitter site, and it says at Apple has not shared a tweet yet. When it does, it will be here, and that's its Twitter site. It's really cute. But these guys don't use, and I say they don't use social media. Carly Kloss and Rihanna do use social media, but they don't use social media for their their charitable organizations. Carly Kloss has Code with Klossy. She's a coder, and they do good, and you don't see her all bragging and, oh, look at me, look at what I did for these kids, teaching them to code. She uses it for her supermodeling for exposure as a celebrity. Yeah, absolutely. And Rihanna has the Clara Lionel Foundation, and she was named Harvard University's 2017 Humanitarian of the Year. You don't see her flaunting that all over the place. She's not bragging about it. She uses her social media for her celebrity status. So these are just some ideas about how people don't shout their bragging rights, which they do. I mean, you know, Carly Kloss and Rihanna have bragging rights, but they don't shout them when it's, you know, doing good for others. And Marlboro and I know it's Augustinier. I'm going to mess up that name if I try to read it in German. Don't use social, and Apple don't use social media at all. So you're using social media. I'm not telling you not to use social media, but what do people want you to whisper in their ear? I'll be honest. Go back to the basics. Go back to what do people need? Not what you want to tell them. You're going to need to whisper what they need. Give them one of these Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they're going to listen to you. Whispering. They are. Job postings, you guys that have jobs, if you're not posting your jobs that are available on your website, on your social media, I highly encourage you to, because it is so, that's one thing. Safety, personal employment, this is a need. And this is something you could whisper and people are going to interact with you. So highly encouraging jobs, respect, recognition. I know a lot of you are not, you know, beer and cigarettes, Marlboro and the Augustinier beer, but it does, for some people, meet a Maslow hierarchy of need for status, for, you know, freedom to choose. So, you know, they meet a need. So what do they not want to hear when you're whispering? So we know that we shouldn't be shouting. We know that we need to target our audiences. We know that we need to, you know, make different messages for different audiences. What do they not want to hear? They don't want to hear you bad-mouthing any other organization. They really don't. You're just opening a big old can of worms when you start bad-mouthing anyone. They don't want to hear you bragging. Highlighting and bragging are different things. You can highlight your activities without bragging. Bragging is, oh, we saved our customers $500,000 this month. Highlighting is, this program has been very useful to some of our customers, and here are some of the testimonials. That's highlighting. That's not bragging. So bullying, when you are doom and gloom, I call it, when my dentist was, oh my goodness, your teeth are going to fall out if you don't have a deep cleaning and 6 root canals. And needless to say, I didn't go to that dentist. So I found another dentist. I had to go through about 3 other dentists to get to that dentist, to my dentist, who is not bullying me to do more, to interact more, to give more, and in my case, money. But in a government communicator's case, stop trying to take all of the people's time. Stop trying to bully people into spending more time on your website. They're not going to, most of the time. I don't mean to be harsh about it, but don't be boring. Just stating we won, the top communicator of the year is kind of boring. Spice it up a little bit. This is a really big one. What you think they should hear? Well, you should probably have an idea about what your customer wants to hear or needs to hear and what you want them to hear. Big difference. And repetition. So I love that little cartoon. I'm bored. You keep telling the same stories over and over again. I left that toward the end of this presentation because I am repeating a lot of things over and over again because I'm hoping that by repetition in this, maybe you'll tweak your strategic plans. And then just a little, how do you whisper? So this is something I do. You've got to find your own voice and your own volume. Before I post, I always ask myself, am I bragging or am I highlighting? Did I say this before? And again, I'm guilty of all these things. I've bragged. I've had repetition. Will this really help someone, or is it just for you to check a box? And the last thing I say is, if it were me getting this stuff and I wasn't close to this type of topic, is it something I want to see in my personal feed? Think about things that you've gotten in your inbox that you really didn't want, and then pretend that your organization is that to someone else. How are you going to tailor your message and change your voice? And then the last thing I want to do before I go into questions is I just wanted to give you, this is going to be available to you. I wanted to give you other ways to whisper, and I don't mean physically whisper, I mean metaphorically whisper. A direct marketing association shows that 79% of customers or consumers act immediately on direct mail pieces, as opposed to 45% that react or immediately act on emails. And that's those postcards. I know it sounds archaic, and you're probably mumbling to yourself, print is dead, print is expensive, print is slow. No, actually, it's kind of making a comeback. And also, people do buy from brands or listen to brands whose initial touch points are unique. So digital ads have an average click-through rate of just 0.06%. If I were to go all the way back to my very first 2 or 3 slides where it said the first internet ad click-through rate was 44%. 44%. If your marketing budget, this is 0.06 for a digital ad that you probably spent a lot of money on out of a very small government communicator budget. And Pebble Post is super cool. They actually link with you, and after somebody's visited your site, they send a postcard or a catalog, you choose, out to your customers after they visit your website. And trade shows, pop-ups, and catalogs. Just some things to think about, other ways to whisper. So I am at the end. I know I went a little bit over, but I am ready to take some questions if anybody's got any.
Hey, oh dear. Hello, it's Bethany.
Hi.
Hold
If anyone has any questions, please type them in the Q&A box, and SJ will address them as they come in. Q&A button is located on the top panel of your screen.
Mackenzie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, I had a little problem with my telephone, so I'm hopping on the computer. Great, SJ, that was wonderful. And we do have a question that's coming in. They said, I've got a question here from Andrea. She's asking, could you talk a little bit more about bragging versus highlighting, what the difference is and how to highlight rather than brag?
Absolutely. Andrea, I have to really watch myself on this as well. We're taught to really sell ourselves, and especially since we have some of us have no budget, some of us have small budgets in government communications, we tend to, really need to talk about what great things our organization has done, maybe some awards that we've won, etc. I try really hard to highlight and let other people brag for me rather than brag myself. So I will throw an accomplishment out there and in my case it's for my military members. Our military members just gave supported a mission sending humanitarian aid down to Venezuela. Instead of saying, oh, look at our guys, they're so awesome, they're so great, they're so, putting all these excellent verbs, which no one would normally use, great, awesome, fantastic, I stated a fact. Our guys supported this mission that sent X amount of humanitarian aid to Venezuela, period. Then I let other people put those extra words in there like great, awesome, supercharged, fantastic, heroes. Bragging is those extra, stating a fact is highlighting. Simplify this a little bit. Highlighting is stating a fact. Did you win an award? Yes, you did. You very simply, humbly, quietly, we won this award. Then you either let your employees who did win this award share it and go, oh, this is so great, it was team effort, or you let your customers go, oh, that is so great. Let them brag. You highlight or just state a fact. Did that answer?
Okay. Can you hear me?
And again, you're not wrong if you do this. I'm just saying, when you brag, people look at you funky. If other people brag on you, you can just go, oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say.
Andrea said that's a great way to put it. Thank you. I have a question, actually. I'd like to ask, why is linking to your website to read more unproductive? Like you said up there, a bad practice was linking to your website and saying, hey, go there to learn more, to get more information. Is that a problematic strategy?
I will say this, just as I've said with other things on this webinar, I have found it to be problematic. The only time I found that it really works and that people click through is that they are extremely interested, or they have a vested interest in that article, like they were in the article or their family member was in the article, to link back to my website. Most of the time, if you are brief and you put a sentence or two about the action in the post, people, oh, that's great, and like it, and then move on. So just in my experience, the only time that it actually really works is when I link people to a Flickr album, for example. where they can go get photos of a mass event that happened, like our 4th of July event, where there was absolutely no way on this earth I could personally reach out to every single person and say, hey, your pictures are up on Flickr. That's when it works the best. Your audience is extremely small when you send people back to read more, unless it's, again, and you know your audience, I don't, unless it's something of mass interest, like road closure. Click here to read more. But just an article, usually not. Did that clarify?
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're saying if it's going to serve your audience's needs, looking at that hierarchy of needs, then it would make sense to click. If they're just trying to give them more information for edification, it's not necessarily going to be effective. Is that a good paraphrase?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So just linking people back all the time to an article on your website to learn more, pretty constantly, is just not a good thing. It's asking people to do too much, and it's asking people to invest a lot more time than they really are willing to invest. And that's in my experience. Again, you know your audience. It might work for you.
Right. That's good. Kevin Burns wrote in. He says, thank you for the presentation, SJ. This is Kevin Burns. He's Communications Director for the City of Birmingham. We tend to be Facebook and Constant Contact users to reach our target audiences, he says. We've been thinking about Instagram. Would you recommend we do an analysis to see if Instagram would be good for us?
Well, obviously, thank you for the question, Kevin. It depends on your audience. What are your demographics in Birmingham, Michigan? If your demographics are in that age area that it's highly targeted, not specifically targeted, but highly targeted, Instagram, then it might be worth a look-see. But what are your numbers on Facebook and Constant Contact? Facebook is, that demographic, age demographic is a little different. If Birmingham, Michigan's median age is 47, then and you're going toward Facebook and you're doing really well on Facebook, so you want to keep that flow going, then your second highest demographic is the 18 to 30-year-olds, then yeah, it's worth doing Instagram, but it does depend on your demographics and your audience and what you're using now and if that's working well. So that was a really roundabout way of saying, I don't know your demographics, but if I knew your demographics, I could give you a better answer.
Great. And Kevin, if you've got a follow-up question, let us know. And I also would like to just follow up quickly to your talking about needs and helping what people want to hear. So when we had the government shutdown, I had gotten wind of a program at one of our local banks where they were doing a $5,000 loan for folks that work for government or government contractors, and it was really good, what do you call it, characteristics of the loan, like low interest and deferred payments and quick approvals, that kind of thing. And so I wrote a post on my personal Facebook page, and I used communications best practices, a little communications plan and that kind of thing. And I was like, I'll be glad if we get, a few shares on this. 54 shares on a personal Facebook post. Now for me, that's a big number. I might get 1 or 2 shares normally, but 54 shares, and I only got 24 likes on my personal post. So that meant that there was about 40 or 50% of people that reposted from my friends. And so that was, I think, a good example of, this is something people really needed. It was something people wanted to hear. It wasn't something I wanted to talk about because it's, whatever, something I did or my kids did or whatever, opinion on current events. It was something my audience wanted to hear, and it was helping. So that might be an example of where that kind of social media post can really go somewhere and get some legs, as opposed to something where you're talking about yourself.
I agree, Bethany. That is, again, when I said, do you link your, do you put a post up and then link people back to your page to find out more information about you? I didn't mean don't ever do that, and don't do that in specific circumstances. Obviously, the government shutdown or sequestration or anything like that, where people are worried about where their next paycheck's coming from and when they're going to get paid and if they have a job, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are you're not meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs if you're keeping people in the dark like that, and they want more information. It is obvious they want more information. Absolutely share a link back to your website for them to find out all the information, be very informed. What I'm saying is that if you're doing that because of, oh, look, we would just want you to link back to our website because we just put out our new monthly e-newsletter, or, oh, we just want you to read this article because it's just so interesting about how, we are reorganizing and reshifting our people. Unless it's going to be a dramatic change, like your hours of operation are going to be slashed on the weekends to nil, and it's going to affect people visiting the parks, or I'm giving examples here. Don't do it all the time. Only do it for extremely important situations. So, Bethany, that was a great
example. And yeah, good. And those are great comments, because that's right. I don't like when I get something about somebody else. I want information. And Kevin says Facebook is strong and growing, so he says thank you for the input. I think that's the end of our answers, or excuse me, our questions. So I guess it's the end of our answers as well. Anything else that anybody needs, let me know. And if not, then thank you everybody for joining us and hanging on for a little bit past 2 o'clock. We will see you or talk to you again in April on the 17th when we hear from the Solar Cup folks from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And I will look forward to that time. Everyone have a wonderful day. This presentation will be archived in the members section of NAGC.com, so you can revisit it. SJ, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to having you again. And Andrea says, thank you, SJ and Bethany. And Kevin says, thank you, everyone. He enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody. We enjoyed you all, too. SJ, thanks so much to you.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye, everybody.